Yo, what's going on? It's Cody from Big Beaver Comics.
It's Anthony from Big Beaver Comics.
Oh shit, I got Ant on a YouTube video here.
Kidnapped me this time.
Kidnapped. Taking him hostage. We're gonna do a collecting guide for... Okay, so I don't wanna say the word key issue and have all the vets out there get all huffy puffy and start saying that's not a key issue, or that's not what a key issue is, or any of that. So what I'm using key issue for is I'm using it for any way that a new collector, this is for a new collector, I'm using the term key issue for a new collector to be able to differentiate between a common book, a book that you'll find in a collection, in a dollar bin for $3, for $4, in anywhere. It's common to the run. It's something that, sure, if you're into that series or into that story arc or into that character, sure, but you should never pay more than what a common book is worth in a back issue selection, right? But why are there books that differentiate themselves from those common books? And you know why. There's a multitude of reasons. So for vets out there that are going like, oh, it's not a key issue, it's not the first appearance of Iron Man, like, pump your brakes, homie. Like, we're not talking to you. We're talking to new collectors. We're talking to new collectors who are going, I just want to know what the fuck? Why is that $10 and that $5?
There's always a reason.
There's a reason. There's a multitude of reasons. Let's dig in. That's what I'm thinking. We're gonna dig in. We're gonna make this a thing. We're gonna dig into a bunch of stuff and take a look at some things and find out why this is that and why it's not $5 like everything else. And I don't know what term we would call it other than key issue. So we're gonna call it key issue, and I know that's very broad. We're talking about what separates a book from $5 to $10, and then saying that $10 book could also go all the way up to tens of thousands.
Right.
But in theory, there's still way more common books, $5 and less.
That's right.
There's still thousands more common books than there is key issues. So we're going to look at a bunch of different ways. We're going to go through some slides. I've made some slides.
You did?
To help make this a little more visual.
There's categories to key issues, you could say.
It goes through a lot of different stuff, man. Like, there isn't just one way to look at all this.
It's not just appearances, first appearances. There's much more to it than that.
There's a lot more ways that a new collector could look at books and say, I kind of have a direction as to where I want to go now.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, I think, what we're looking for, is giving people a little bit of direction. Because when you jump into comics, and that's what I've been saying a lot in this new comic collector series we've been doing, that we've had people ask us to do, is that it can be overwhelming, dude. Like, look at on the table in front of us. We're getting ready to do a $2 sale later today.
We are.
We're looking at hundreds of books in piles in front of us that are all just $2 books.
Yeah.
Imagine, look at the room you're surrounded in and the amount of books that there are here. It's overwhelming to people. They don't know where they can jump off. They just go like, fuck this. This is too much. I don't know how to get involved in this. So I'm going to help streamline that. We're going to cut through the noise and give people the ability to really say like, oh, I see what I'm kind of gunning for. Right. And now you can kind of set your pace, set your budget, set your sights. If you don't have any aim, like, what are you shooting at?
That's right.
Like, you know what I mean? You got to have some aim. So we're going to give people a little bit of aim. I'm Cody from Big Beaver Comics. If we didn't already mention that, go to the Facebook. We do live sales on Facebook. Go to Instagram. We do all sorts of cool shit there. Like, follow, like, subscribe here on YouTube. Like this video. Share this video with your friends. If you're into comic book collecting, I think this video is going to add a whole lot of value to your comic book collecting knowledge. And I think you could probably help a lot of people too. If you think you're such a smarty pants, feel free to go to the Big Beaver Comics page on Facebook. Let us know, smarty pants, what we missed out on. Let us know in the comments here, right? And we want to know. Let us know in the comments. So we're going to look at a bunch of different ways that you could be collecting and why something might cost more than a lot of common books. Let's look at the most common thing. Let's look at first appearances. All right, so first appearances. We're looking at this slide here. Everybody should be looking at Carnage. We're looking at how this first appearance breaks down, right? Because there's a breakdown of these first appearances when you go look at a collector market. So I'm going to look at this, and you can extrapolate this over a lot of different characters. So when you're doing your research, make sure that you understand when you're going into something how all these pieces fit together and what the difference is. There's a lot of nuance to comic books, little color changes and subtleties you need to keep up with. Amazing Spider-Man 360, Anthony, my friend Anthony.
Yes.
This is the first cameo
That's
of
right.
Carnage, our symbiote friend, who's soon to be on the silver screen.
He is. He's an upcoming movie.
Right? That's
Right?
that's Woody Harrelson, apparently.
That is playing, yeah.
Yeah,
Cletus
that's
Cassidy
what
comes
Cletus
last
Cassidy
year.
is being played
Yeah.
by. That's pretty cool shit.
That is
man.
cool shit, man.
So if you look at 360, it is not a Carnage storyline. I believe
No,
he's
not at
fighting Cardiac in this Spider-Man. But either way, at the very end of 360, inside the comic, you see the panel beside the book here on the left-hand side of your screen. That's a cameo panel of Carnage, things to come in the future. So in the comic book collecting market, in the community that you find yourself intertwined in with all this art and collectability, this is still considered a key issue. And
It
a
is,
premium, not only because of the age, not only because it's Amazing Spider-Man, not only because a lot of this Amazing Spider-Man, Jeff Bagley stuff was Mark Bagley, Jeff Bagley. A lot of this Mark Bagley stuff, excellent stuff.
It is,
right?
it is.
Excellent stuff. The collectability is already high, but then you add in a cameo appearance, right? So you have this cameo of a major character. It's not the most expensive book. But if you're thinking about collectability, there's a book, and when you see it, there's a reason when you go like, that's not a first appearance. Cameo of a major character. Following that up, 361, so the next book. You get a double whammy here.
You do.
It hits you right.
You get a little 1-2.
One in the mouth, one in the taint.
And then you're
that's
down.
How
on
they.
the count,
That's
right?
you're down on that
Done.
one. When the taint, that's the finishing blow. I watched Ric Flair kick a lot of guys in the taint.
I saw.
I know how that works.
Yep.
361, you get your first appearance of Carnage. So this is the money book. This white covered issue. So the one you're seeing here is an autograph. And I think this might actually be a Bagley autograph there, to be honest with you. But we're going to talk about autographs when we do CGC books, because it's the only time to appropriately address autographs and their authenticity is when we do graded books, and we'll talk about CGC's autograph process and the CBCS authentication process. We'll deal with all that stuff in the slabbed stuff. So the autographs are definitely a way to collect books, but that's definitely the next tier up, and we'll start talking, and not necessarily because they're more expensive, just because you need to do it a certain way to get it authenticated.
That's right, you do.
Right. So we'll talk about that. But back to 361, first appearance, the one in the middle, the white cover there. You get the double whammy. You not only get the first appearance of a major character, Carnage, major, heavyweight stuff. They're not playing around at all. But you also get him with his first appearance on a cover.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not only wicked that way, but it looks beast. You get a lot of first appearances where people aren't on the cover. It happens in the middle to the end of a book.
That's right.
It doesn't happen on the cover because they're not trying to... You're not trying to get you to bust early. They were trying to keep you fluffed and tantalize you in. Right? But with this, you got it on the cover. But because of that, you got a book that had a lot of book sales because Carnage got hot fast.
So fast.
So as a key issue, you get a second printing of it. And back in the day, when you had a book that got a second printing, the second printing was not near as sought after on the collector market. Still, again, a key issue.
It is.
A silver background. As you can see, there is a color variance there,
There's
difference.
a difference to them, yeah.
The color's a little brighter on the right as opposed to the one nearest the middle with the autographs, but I'm not sure if that color contrast isn't just the picture we have,
right,
or the printer. We've seen printer.
It's always known as a silverback.
It is, yeah, absolutely. Right. That's your big variation, but that's so you can see that the first print, first appearance. If you're collecting first appearances, is going to be your Carnage, your 361 ASM, but there's a cameo key in 360, and there's a second print of 361, both still known as keys. If you're a Carnage collector, or an ASM collector, or a symbiote collector, all of those books kind of pertain to that collecting direction. But if you're just looking for hot books, the book worth the most, it's 361 first print.
That's right.
First appearance of Carnage, not cameo. Moving on, next slide. Next slide, still in the scope of first appearances. And we've got to get deep, like I said, into this.
Right.
Because there's many, many variables.
It's a rabbit hole a little bit.
When it comes to why books are worth a little more than other books. I'm going to have, you entertain these people, I have a sip of this Diet Coke. You have nothing to say.
Nothing to say
This
right
man
now.
looked at me like he was
I
caught like a
something,
deer in
and
the
I had a brain
headlights.
fart.
Unbelievable.
I was going to say with the...
You're done talking now.
I'm done. All right,
you're
you
done,
go ahead,
sir. Secret Wars 8, you're done. You see yourself. Secret Wars 8 is a great example of a first appearance. Black Suit. Not a first appearance of a character, but a first appearance in theory of the Venom symbiote, in symbiotes in general, right? And the black suit that became so iconic with Spider-Man.
Very iconic.
In the 80s, right? So, but it's not a first, it's still very expensive, key issue, a comic book that they've done homages to, tons of different series. They've reprinted multitudes of times, but that Secret Wars 8, that original Secret Wars 8, while not a first appearance of a character, first appearance of a suit and a symbiote entity that makes it a very sought after key issue. So a different thing than a first appearance of a character, but still collectible, pricey, going up all the time, sought after.
Very sought after.
Very sought after. You mind your mouth. I see you want to try to interject now. You had your moment. I took a sip of Diet Coke. I gave you the floor. You looked at me like, I don't want this floor. Take this floor back, and I've taken the floor back. We're talking about Carol Danvers. Last 3 books on this panel. First book, Secret Wars 8. Next 3 books, all Carol Danvers related. All still first appearance genre'd. Okay. Marvel Superheroes 13 is your first appearance of Carol Danvers in comic books.
That's right.
Though Carol Danvers has multiple first appearances in comics, because later on, Carol Danvers becomes Miss Marvel, and her first appearance as Miss Marvel, as you can see in the second to last picture here, is in Miss Marvel #1.
That's
back
correct,
in 1977?
78?
Something like that. And then we're talking about Carol Danvers not only becoming binary in the 80s,
that's true,
but Carol Danvers also becoming Captain Marvel in Avenging Spider-Man #9. So one character can have multiple first appearances if they change as a character. They change who they are. As you've seen, Dr. Octopus has become multiple different characters. There's been people who've taken on the mantle of different characters. And when that happens, or when a character debuts as a normie, as a human, before they've taken on the mantle of a character, then you can also have 2 characters, or you have a Carol Danvers.
Or how Dick Grayson evolved.
Exactly. Or you have a Carol Danvers who's taken on so many different throughout the years. And that's why I thought she'd be a great example, because
that is a great
example. You have multiple different iterations of one person playing different things, but all considered first appearances, and your first appearance as Miss Marvel.
I think you guys can correct me, but I think they're all from Earth 616.
Right. No, it is. It is.
They're not multiple universes.
No. This is Carol Danvers from the normal universe that you'd think of as Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and all that stuff. But that Miss Marvel, the middle one, is actually your most sought after in the highest condition, and the one worth the most money. More so than the actual first appearance of Carol Danvers as Carol Danvers. So there's just a lot of different ways we can look at first appearances. We're going to move on a third slide, because there's more first appearances. So you look at X-Men #1 on the left. X-Men #1, while it has the first appearance of Cyclops, Beast, Angel, Marvel Girls, it has the first appearance of Iceman, Magneto. It is also the first appearance of the group, the X-Men.
That's right.
So while that might not be the greatest example, because all the way down the list, you're going to say first appearance of the X-Men, because there's the first appearance of these iconic characters involved in it too. But let's extrapolate a little further. We'll take Cyclops out of that equation.
There we go.
We'll put him into X-Factor and look at X-Factor #1. While Cyclops runs that X-Factor faction,
not his first appearance.
X-Factor 1 isn't his first appearance, but it's the first appearance of X-Factor as a group. So if you look all the way, and I don't know why I'd laid it out like this, but let's go all the way to the right of the page, all the way over to Spider-Man Annual #1. You see the first appearance of another type of faction. The first appearance of the Sinister Six.
That's right.
Right, because there's all types of different ways that firsts come into play. It's not just the first time someone appeared in a comic.
Right.
Sometimes it's the first kiss, it's the first this, it's the first that.
Yeah, right.
It's the first fight between two characters. Let's look at the two middle books. You've got Silver Surfer #44. That's your first appearance of the Infinity Gauntlet. Again, you're getting it on a cover. That's really cool.
Right, first appearance of an item this time, right?
Absolutely, something completely
different, you
different,
want to call
right?
it.
Somewhat similar to the black suit we saw in Secret Wars 8, but not 100% the same. And a reason why you can look at that book and go like, that fucking makes sense. That's why that's worth so much more. Not only is it like, that's worth more probably than Infinity Gauntlet 1, I would say by probably close $10-15,
right?
Up a 25% margin,
right?
Because
it's a huge jump.
Because it's Infinity Gauntlet 1 is a big jumping off point for that storyline, for that mini series, for what became a large movie story arc. This is still the book that birthed all of that by leading up and giving you this Infinity Gauntlet actual item. And then we look at the book, the third book on this page. And this is now looking at if you were to be favoring someone, and especially an icon. Again, we say the word iconic, but that's what, when we're using examples like this, that's how this kind of works. We're looking at Spider-Man, was this 39? This is the first time John Romita took over after Steve Ditko left Marvel. Steve Ditko left Marvel. They had Romita. Romita was working over on Daredevil, I believe. They brought Romita, Stan Lee requested Romita specifically, brought Romita over from wherever he was at. I think it was Daredevil. I think he was on Daredevil. Yeah, and they brought him over when Ditko left. And they brought him in. And if you're, John Romita, 91 years old now. I mean, we're talking about his son is a classic artist in the comic book genre, John Romita Jr., right? So Senior is such a large artist that while this book is old, this book is cool. This book doesn't have a first appearance of anything massive in it. It's not, but it is the first time John Romita ever did Spider-Man in published work. Right. And that, much like a first Frank Miller doing Daredevil, or a first Neil Adams doing Batman.
First McFarlane doing Spider-Man.
Those hold premiums as well.
Right.
Because those are iconic artists that are tied directly. Their careers are interwoven. Mm-hmm. It's tough to do it with a Kirby and with a Fantastic Four, because again you get into that same problem with X-Men #1, where X-Men #1 is at the very bottom of the list of what happened in X-Men #1. They're a group, right? And the same thing with Kirby drawing Fantastic Four. There's so many first appearances in that the fact that that's Kirby's first time drawing it is the last thing you're really concerned with.
Because the characters are so huge.
Right. There's bigger things that happen.
Shadows you.
But when you jump into something like Romita jumps into Spider-Man at 39, and nothing specifically happens in that issue, the fact that a artist that's considered a Hall of Famer without question picks up the mantle there, becomes a big book.
Becomes history.
Because it's John Romita stepping up to the plate for Amazing Spider-Man and carrying it for issues, buddy, issues.
Right.
So there's a lot of different ways that first appearances can really make things collectible. It doesn't have to be just the first time someone showed up somewhere. But that's not the only reason. That's not the only way a book can find itself leapfrogging out of the dormant, dusty long boxes that are $2, $3 bin books, right? Yeah. And jump up to that next tier where books are collectible, worth money, and potentially might continue to escalate in value. And there's only one way to look at that, and that's to move on to something further. So let's try to unpack variant covers. I mean, this is something that unpacking is almost, it seems to people that are on the outside looking in, or if you just get a glimpse, especially of modern comics, if you catch a book at a milestone and you take a look at all the variant covers, you might just say like, you know what? Fuck this comic thing. This looks like way too overwhelming. So let's try to give people a bunch of the different ways that variant covers intersect with comic books and how you can differentiate why a certain variant might be worth something and one might not be. So look at the more common stuff that you're going to see. We do it back issues here at Big Beaver Comics. Shout out if you're still here, this deep in this motherfucker. Big Beaver Comics here at Facebook, here at YouTube, subscribe, Instagram. I'm Cody. This is Anthony. We do live sales on Facebook Saturday, Sunday, Monday. That shit's Canada only, man. We're up here in the Great White North. Shout out to people freezing their fucking balls off. Let's keep talking about some comics. So what you're looking at on the screen is variant covers, direct editions. When you see that, you see this in the bottom left-hand corner, you see that Spider-Man 30th anniversary imprint that's in there. So that's what was going on at the time of this first Carnage came out, right? So this is the direct edition. That means a comic shop bought this directly from the distributor. They ordered a select amount. Distributors distribute Diamond. Back in the day, that's who it was. Distributed to every comic shop known to man in North America, maybe everywhere else too. I don't know how it worked. Definitely North America. And that's where you get that imprint from. When you see these barcodes, especially from books about, what is it, 79, 80,
right around there,
to what, the mid 2000s, mid 90s.
I would say that's a good range.
Somewhere in there, and then you see the barcodes change to where there's two separate barcodes. There's a direct edition barcode, and there's a barcode that identifies usually what the book's name is.
Say like Wolverine,
it'll say,
Daredevil,
and that's your newsstand version.
Yeah.
So what you see here with the barcode on this Carnage book is your newsstand version. So much more rare, it's because of twofold. Obviously, comic book shops, there was a lot of them. There's, especially back in the day of this Carnage book, a lot more comic shops ordering this book. Ordered it to the point where there was a second print, like we were saying earlier. So there's more of them. Comic shops handle the books better. Comic collectors more likely to go into a comic shop and buy their comic books. I know that's more so now, but even in the early 90s, that was still, it was a trending thing. That you're going to go somewhere with people like-minded that you could speak to about your books, that might know what's going on, that will take care of your books better, because it takes a few people handling this book before you get a 9/8 in your hands, and then you can decide to get it in the hands of CGC. So these newsstand copies printed a lot less, handled a lot more, found in grocery stores, convenience stores, gas stations, found
stuff on the go kind of stuff.
Right, places on the go. Found in a rack. Who knows who it was put in there by? 70-year-old old Betty working the till.
Does not care.
Doesn't care about books. Squeezes all the spines at once of all the new Carnages.
And just throws them in that
and
rack.
that whole gas station, that whole Texaco now has their spines of their first appearance of Carnage. Gnarled.
Full of schmutz.
So you're much harder to find 9/8 in newsstands. Newsstands hold a bit of a premium as far as variant covers.
Right.
Another thing you're going to notice, you go to the far right of the screen. Batman Who Laughs #1 is a book I took as an example, but you could look at, like I was saying, any number of milestone books they think are going to be big.
Yeah.
So whether it's Detective Comics 1000, whether it's Batman Who Laughs #1, whether it's the Spider-Man Red Goblin story arc, there's a bunch of examples recently you could look at where they printed 40 different variant covers, 30 different variant covers for one issue. Same issue on the inside, same blood and guts in the inside.
Just a different cover.
Different cover. You're thinking, where are these covers from? Where? I didn't see any of these covers in my local store. No, you didn't. So this cover here, this Batman Who Laughs #1 cover, is a great example of what's considered a retailer exclusive. So Scorpion Comics could be an online retailer, could be an actual physical store.
Right.
What they do is they commission an artist to come in and make a select number, make a cover that they print a select number of that cover with that book, with those guts inside of it, and you got to buy that directly from them. So when you see these covers that have, or these comics have 20 covers, 25 covers, you know, like that's what you're seeing, is you're seeing 70% of those, 80% of those covers being retailer exclusives to a certain company.
Right.
That a lot of times you have to pre-order. You're going to have to buy on the secondary market for a major premium, because a lot of times the pre-orders might be sold out. But this is where you're going to get your cool Virgin variants. This is going to be where you're going to get a lot of the really, really nice art. So that exists out there. And that, again, you are rolling the dice with what you pay on the open market. You might buy it early. You might pay $45 for that book, which is a $5 book. You might pay $45 for it. You'll get it. It'll be wicked, in great shape. You might hold on to it. It might only be worth $45 in 10 years,
right.
20 years. But you might get it, and it might be worth $500.
Could be.
Because if it's the right grade, it's the right book that does the right things, but you take a lot of risk by paying a major premium for one of those covers. If you're buying it strictly because you love that artist, if you like, this Clayton Crane book is dope. If you're a Clayton Crane fan and you
maybe just buy it for that reason, right?
And you buy it for that reason, then I would say absolutely that's the right $45 to spend as an investment, as a variant cover.
Or a gamble.
It gets to be a little dicey because for all those big books, they print a lot of them. I'm still probably looking for first appearances in high grade first, and I'll be looking for a first appearance in a high grade newsstand even more first.
For sure,
If I was but move on to a new different type of variant, which is price variance. You're going to see a lot of price variation anymore. But here's a good example of a price variant a lot of people know of. So this is Star Wars #1. Now, this is 1977. Wasn't sure about Miss Marvel 1. That might be 78. This is 77, though. So this is a very known price variant. Because your variant, your 35-cent version, the one in the middle there, is worth considerably more. Now, I don't know which version of a variant this is. Is this a Canadian price variant?
Right, or is it something they tested somewhere
Or
in the
was this a
States?
test market variant?
Right.
Because that's a lot of those are the two ways you see a lot of price variants. You'll see a variant because it's from a different country as opposed to the United States, so that'll be a variant. So you see a Canadian price variant. So you'll see an American price will have an American price, a Canadian price, and a UK price.
For example, one would say 60 cents, one would say 75 cents.
Exactly. But then there's some price variants where what it was Marvel was testing the market. They were going, would it work if we jump prices from 30 to 35 cents? Like, how would the market handle that? Would the sales dwindle down? Is there a way that we could test it? They'd go, okay, well, in the printers that distribute books for Wichita, Kansas, and they distribute it for Dearborn, Michigan, and for Olympia, Washington, we're going to send those books out printed with 35-cent print labels on them, and we're going to see if that affects sales at all. So you had these test markets where a bunch of people got books that all have that variant print price, but then no one in a 1,000-mile radius around them seen a book that looked like that.
No,
because it all was. So there's a bunch of different, but there are price variants out there. So again, when you see Star Wars #1 and you see two differentiating prices, drastic price changes, that could be one of the things. Now on the far right, another thing you're going to see with a lot of these books, especially with classic books, and I figured I'd throw that in there, and I'd consider this a variant, is you see a lot of facsimiles and reprints out there. Now, I'm not saying a facsimile or a reprint isn't worth money and isn't collectible. It makes for a hell of a filler piece.
Oh, it definitely is.
If you don't have a book, I'd drop $10 on a nice facsimile of a cover all day, bro.
Right.
For the whole inside and everything. As long as the front cover doesn't have one of those True Believers banners across it. I want it to have as much of the original look as it possibly can.
Right.
But you need to be aware of that. You need to know how to spot all the differences in paper. Like, if you look at this one on the right, this reprint one, by Luke in the letterbox, on the left-hand side of Luke in the letterbox, even though the diamond selling price is different in the number, the Luke in the letterbox has a little bar that says reprint. But I bet you there's a lot of people out there ain't never looked and seen that before.
Right.
You just got to make sure that what you're buying, you know what you're getting yourself into, because a lot of variations can be considered a reprint. It's not a variant.
Don't get starstruck when you see a kind of a book like that. Take your time and actually look at it see if it is a reprint or
Get
not.
your education, right?
That's right.
eBay and stuff is a great resource. Comic book realm. We'll look up things from Heritage Auction.
Yeah, as you should. You got the internet at your hand.
Read the CGC. Right? Yeah, you have absolutely this entirety of human history and knowledge at your fingertips. Please use that to your advantage. Moving on to other types of variant covers. The third type of variant covers, the last type of variant covers that I put in here, is things that are a little more common nowadays. The retailer exclusives, you got to go really out of your way to get. I guess some of these, the retailer summit exclusives, as you see with this Marvel Zombies book in the middle. Again, you got to go out of your way for those. Those are deep in the weeds. Comic Con exclusives, like you see Alice in Wonderland on the far right. Again, Comic Cons, this SDCC exclusive stuff, it's not advantageous to sell paper in a really busy, crammed in auditorium. It's not good for coronavirus either, but it's not good in the past to put all those people in there with a bunch of paper that gets crumpled. So they've kind of steered away from ever doing comics at cons, or to a great extent. Right. Cons are a lot more geared towards you bringing books, getting them autographed, getting them slabbed and certified by CGC, meeting artists. That's more what a con's for, as far as a comic collector goes. Right. It's more for that than for procuring new books, because you want to carry a piece of paper around a Comic Con all day and trying to ding it up. Like, it's
impossible.
Right. So the Retailer Summit exclusive you see with the Marvel Zombies Resurrection is, so everybody that gets invited to these promotional parties thrown by retailers, Diamond, all these guys, they want to try to wheel and deal you and get you in on board and get you ordering more and all this kind of stuff. There's incentive covers of books that are going on right then and there that they'll give out that are exclusive to that. They have a branding a lot of times on the cover. Unless it's a major book that something happens in again, they charge, it's an extra $5 on what that book might be. Even though that book was super hard to find, it's super hard to get. You had to be it that there's nobody that wants it. If it's a common book and it's normally $3, you might be able to get 10 out of it. Right. If something happened in it, if for some reason it was a mod, and I'm not sure if this happened, it might have at one of these conventions where a modified retailer summit exclusive cover became a book that was ridiculous because there was only the 1,000 given out at that summit, and it was a first appearance of someone. I don't know of that happening, but I do know of a lot of these books carrying, again, a bit of a premium because there's a bit of exclusivity to it.
Really low print run.
So let's take a look at the two on the left, and we'll be able to use this as the example of what people know of the more common modern variant. And again, if you're sticking with us this far, we hope you're using this as a way to come back and educate yourself on how all the different books find their way, pushing their head above the rest.
That's right.
And saying like, hey, I'm worth $10. I'm worth 15. Well, why? Right. Why is that? Well, this is why. And when you look at these incentive books, Wolverine #1 by Jim Lee, the ratio is a 1 in 100. What does that mean? A comic book store has to buy 100 copies of the regular cover of that issue to gain one copy of that cover that you see there, that Jim Lee 1 in 100. Now, a lot of times comic stores, what they're going to do, and it seems right, is they probably know, hopefully, if they're fiscally responsible, that they're going to be able to sell a good majority of those 100 copies they buy. And maybe there's a couple more incentive covers along the way. Maybe there's a few 1 in 25, so they're going to hit 4 of those as they're going. Maybe there's a 1 in 50, they're going to hit 2 of those as they're going. 1 in
75.
And then 1 in 100. So they're going to get some other incentive covers. They're going to charge a premium on those incentive covers. They're going to charge probably $100 or $150 for that 1 in 100 book. Because they had to buy so many books. So they go on the hook. And now you're getting a book that's so rare. So you're paying for that rare collectability, that exclusivity. You're paying for that up front. But there's a big differentiating factor when playing even with these type of books. If you look at the Wolverine 310 to the right of that book by Stephen Platt, it's also a 1 in 100 variant. Now, both covers look cool. Both covers were equally as difficult to get a hold of. I mean, maybe retailers ordered a lot more of Wolverine 1 than they ordered of Wolverine 310.
That's true.
But I can tell you for a fact that Stephen Platt 1 in 100 cover is worth $450 roughly.
Yep.
And the Jim Lee 1 in 100 book is worth $75. So there's Jim Lee, I'm sure you've lost maybe $25 or $50 on that cover over the course of the 8 years that book's been around, 10 years that book's been around. But in the Steve Platt book, you've gained 3 times your money. Now, is that because there was the amount of 100 book orders for 310 was so much lower for retailers that there was so many fewer 1 in 100 books out there? Right. Is it that the cover's more collectible? Is it that there was for some reason, a lot of the 310 covers, the 1 in 100 Stephen Platt ones, got hurt.
Right.
That they got beat up. Something happened with the shipments. There's a printer issue, a roller issue, a known issue for something. There's so many different reasons. So when you're buying these incentive variants, you're going to pay a premium up front. And if you're right, you may make multitudes exponential more money. But if things don't go your way, you may find yourself paying $100 for a book with a different cover, with the same guts inside of it.
Right, exactly the same, just different cover.
That you might pay $100 for, or a 1 in 50, you might pay $50 or $70 for, or a 1 in 25, you might pay $35 for, or even a 1 in 10, you might pay $15 for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've seen all of it. It's not a 1 in 1 variant. We're talking about you're going to pay that exponential growth ratio. That the dealer is expecting to get his incentivification money back on the open market. And you might find yourself losing in the long run. So that, if you really want the cover again, that's when it's time to make the move.
Right.
If it's that cover is what's really fucking, it's
tickling your taint.
If it's knocking your nuts around, that cover, get it.
Right.
But if you're just getting into it because it's a 1 in 100, that doesn't always mean nothing.
Yeah, sometimes it means shit.
Fuck all. It means you paid $100 for a $70
for a common book.
For a $6 book.
Right.
With a $70 cover. And so you overpaid. So if it's the book, then that's the time to do it. But if it's just you making the move because FOMO, sometimes it's best to fear missing out and miss out.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of different things, and we are totally not done. There's more reasons. More. That's not it. Variant covers.
No.
Stay with me. There's more reasons why books are more expensive than just a common book. I'm going to tell you some of those reasons. And those reasons are very much errors and recalled books. Books don't just have to have first appearances. They don't have to have a first thing that happened. They can have all sorts of strange and anomalous things that took place with this book out there in the world that can make it so that if you're, let's take a look at the Lethal Protector book. Everybody knows this iconic red foil first Venom book and his own first miniseries that stands out. But the major collectors out there, or maybe some people who have books that don't even realize what they have, there's a black version of this cover that's a printer error that's known to be out there. It's quite a bit more expensive, especially in a high grade. Not very easy to find. Not something you're going to stumble upon probably. But if you search it out, they are out there. And then you also have to the far left of the screen the white cover.
Which I think looks the best.
Which is like a 1 in... There's 10 of them maybe, 8 of them. There's very few. It's probably a sample book.
When you think about it, that's actually kind
of It's probably a sample book. There's a lot written on that CGC label. You'd have to...
I can't see what that says.
You'd have to flesh it out further. But there's so many different ways that books can be collectible based on errors. I know there's a lot of the holograms from the 90s and the Marvel stuff
they got that color
had mixed color issues or color variations, blue to green, or all sorts of blends of colors, and that in theory that's an error, and it causes a premium in a book. So a book otherwise worth $7, $8 becomes worth $15, $20, and becomes a lot more collectible, much better talking piece, much more interesting, obviously.
Definitely.
So we have this Electra book on the right, a book we actually have.
We do.
In the copy that they say the nude version.
I like to call it the Muff Edition.
Right, the Muff Edition, where inside there's a few panels where Electra gets a little salacious.
Right.
So it was recalled and they reprinted the book, changed the panels.
Yes.
But there are versions of it out there that contain the original panels. We've also seen books that have all sorts of slurs or swear words.
Right, that was an error.
That was an error. There was people who got faxes with smudges that thought the word kick was supposed to be
racial slur, right?
Or trigger. There's all sorts of mistakes that we've seen out there, right? So we've seen these things where recalled books end up finding but they get out there in an original print run.
They do,
And there's too much violence on a cover, or there's all sorts of that kind of stuff out there. So if you go look, there's websites that have allocated themselves exclusively to breaking down all the different imprints and of all the different types of error books or known errors or reprints or recalled books. So many different versions. And then we've also got books that have things like double covers, right? Like where a printing error happened and a cover got double stapled to a book. And again, you add exponential growth onto books. If that's naturally like that, guys have tried to fake add double covers onto books because it adds value onto a book, right? Like not only do they try to like Frankenstein old books together with multiple old books and try to piece them together to make one fresh one, but guys have tried to make double covers too, right? You also have controversial books, so books that maybe weren't pulled, but books that are known for having a controversial something take place. So again, too graphic is another thing that I would note that this would take place in. Books that are too graphic are known sometimes where like they'll put it out, then they'll pull it. Then they won't put out there won't be a recalled version and then a reprint. It'll just be pulled off the shelf because they don't print the second printing of it because there was a severed head or there was this.
Whatever happens to be a...
Absolutely. In this case, on the right-hand side, you see Teabag the Libs. Right? A little too controversial, a little too political. Didn't pull the book specifically. No. But it's a book that, while otherwise a common book, is known for having some slanderous or controversial insight. For some reason. Right. There's all sorts of different things, right? Let's move on and we'll take a look at some of the last things that there are. Low print run books. These can be misconstrued. A low print run, there's so many different ways to look at it. So let's look at the two most polarizing ways, the two more famous outcomes. On the left-hand side, you see Jeff Smith's Bone. And on the right-hand side, you're looking at very, very early Spider-Gwen #1.
What a hot character that is.
Nice book, too. Gorgeous cover. Right. So there's two different ways that books with different printing... Well, there's a third way now, and I guess I'll explain that afterwards. But there's two classic ways that this takes place. Jeff Smith, that was independently funded. Jeff doesn't know that Bone 1 is going to take off and end up becoming as popular as it did, still to the point where it's around and it published tons of reprints of #1 and tons of issues after #1. There was a select number published, paid a certain amount of money, got a select number out there, sold those bitches, made that cash, and then kept making Bone and making bank. And shout out to Jeff Smith for that dollar bill. Right. But the first issue, low print, man. Really low print run. So your first issue, they didn't know it was going to get hot. They didn't know money was going to get interjected into it. That other publishers, people were going to see the potential. That they were going to run with it. So that first print run, couple thousand books, whatever it happens to be, those things in good shape worth big money. Print runs 2 to what? 4, 8, 10, 70 of Bone #1. There's so many reprints of Bone #1. They go down exponentially starting with the second print worth $20. Right. Because it's still just Bone. Like they're not, people aren't tearing down the walls trying to get to Bone. No. They're happy that it exists. There's a lot of fans of it. That first issue, the first print of it, there's a lot of people that would like that.
Then they started pumping it out with the reprints, right?
Then it saturated enough followers that now there's enough of it out there. And what's really sought after is that one they never knew was going to be as big as it was. And then on the complete flip side of this example, you have somebody they knew was going to be huge. Spider-Gwen they knew was going to be huge. Right. They were ready. Everyone ordered a lot of that first issue, that red issue there. You see, the one with the red bar on the bottom. Yeah. They ordered a lot. They were prepared. So they pumped out a lot. And that issue still holds weight today. $20, probably going to never go below 20. Probably be a $50 book 10 years from now. Right. Settling in a nice spot. Beautiful book. But it had this slow burn. They weren't prepared for it. See, what happened with Spider-Gwen is she circumvented comic collectors. She crossed the Rubicon into mainstream pop culture. And the slow burn of her character caused people that weren't otherwise comic collectors to maybe pop at a comic shop and pick up books. So as you got into a third print, a fourth print, into a fifth print where you see here with the green bar, there were still some comic shops in the fourth print, fifth print that were in Florida, that were here, that were there. Who knows? Going like, we could probably still sell 10 or 15 more. That's right. Yeah. Send some more. We could sell a few more. And it's those people that bought that 4th print, that 5th print that have different colored bars as you get deeper in the print runs. The 5th print, the last print, the lowest print run, the one to fill just 50 comic shops around all of North America.
Right.
That's the one worth the most. Because it wasn't that there wasn't enough. It wasn't that they didn't plan. It wasn't that they didn't prepare for
might only have 600,
but
right?
the slow burn, they didn't realize she was gonna push past. Because how many characters? Who? Spawn? Even Deadpool didn't do it when Deadpool was new.
Right.
Deadpool did it later. That became popular later. Right. That didn't Spawn, maybe. But Spawn, they pumped his books out. Though, they pumped those out. This, same kind of thing. Knew it was going to be popular, just didn't know it was going to be that popular. Right. So when you're looking at print runs, 2 different ways to look at. Is it a low print run first appearance and then it got hot? Or was it that it was so hot that now all of a sudden it's the later print runs that become more and more scarce because not every comic shop orders the 3rd print, the 4th print, the 5th print. And that moves into what we're talking about, what I said earlier, there's a 3rd way to look at this. I don't have a picture of it, but modern books are starting to make it now where they print different covers for successive prints. 2nd print gets a new cover.
That's right.
3rd print gets a new cover. I've seen where they print the key page, the splash page from inside the cover, inside the book, as the cover of the 3rd print, to make that where if it's a key issue and the splash page where that key thing happens, and then that splash page is the cover, that then becomes an issue that's it's printed less because less people need it, so less common purchasers are buying it. It's already off most people's pull lists because they grab the regular first printing of the regular copy, so less stores get it, but then it has that first appearance on that cover.
Right, and that's
dude,
so cool.
They did it with Null, with Codex. Right. I've seen them do it with a lot of people.
Presents really well like that too.
There's a lot of stuff when it comes to these variants, man, and all these print runs, and
a lot of things you gotta look for.
Dude, there's a lot of reasons why things cost money.
Right, you gotta do your research.
The thing is, iconic covers is another reason. These variant covers, it's great that there's all this different variation, that you've got all this selection. I'm not saying it's not good, but the thing that I think retains the most value, the thing that people still notice that they resonate with when they see it, is iconic covers. They don't have to necessarily have something happen inside of them.
Right.
But there's something about that book.
It burns into your
image.
Everyone
remembers it. And you don't see it nowadays as much because books have so many covers.
Right.
That there's too much busyness.
Right.
You're going to find your more iconic covers where it doesn't have to be sure, your Iron Man here, where he's got a drinking problem, is a key issue in the sense that Iron Man became a drunk or whatever. Right. But it's more that cover is so known for what it represents, for these Wolverine covers, for the first time X-Men meet Frankenstein.
Right.
Those aren't first appearances, but man, they stand out on this level that shows why that cover adds this value without having a first appearance, without being a variant, without having, there's nothing else about it.
Sometimes homage covers are more expensive too, right?
Right, because they pay homage a lot of times to this.
That's right.
They pay homage to iconic covers. Now, iconic covers, yes, a lot of times are first appearances, because with a major first appearance, it's going to make that book be popular.
It is.
So coupling those things together is going to cause those covers to become well known. The first appearance of Galactus, your first appearance of Venom.
Right.
These become well-known covers because you've coupled these major first appearances with everyone wanting them, and then that cover becomes second nature to you.
That is true.
But when a cover that is of a book that doesn't really have much going on inside of it becomes second nature to the collecting sphere, that's when you know that artist and that cover have earned the right to be charging a little extra money. And there's this last one reason I came up with.
What might it be?
Why things might cost a little more than common books do. That's real strange variations. So things like Mark Jeweler variants. And I know people say, what's that? Hey, look, if you need a full dissertation on Mark Jeweler variants, Go on the internet, check it out. It'll explain it. But for the most part, they're jewelry advertisement inserts that were printed into these books, sold near and on military bases around the United States for a period of time that probably encompasses 25 years, if not more.
That's probably
it's a long. So like if you look down inside a book, if you've got a Mark Jeweler variant, a lot of times it's 2 or 3 pages of glossy paper right in the middle. Yep. You can see it from down inside the paper.
Oh, they stand out definitely.
But I'm from Canada. It's not something we see very much of, but they're out there. It's a different way to collect. There are books that are first appearances, that are major books, that have Mark Jeweler variants that make them extremely more rare. But again, it's region specific a lot of the time. And it's because of that makes it very, very difficult to specifically track down unless you go hunting for that book. And when you go hunting for that book through heritage auctions, eBay, whatever it happens to be, you're going to pay that premium.
You definitely are.
And that's where that premium's at. And then on the right side of the screen, the last, and I hope this tutorial helps. I hope everybody who came into this going, I don't know why books.
That's taking something away from
dude, this was everything. I couldn't think of anything more. DC Universe logo is another good way. So if you look where the letterbox is, you see that red thing that says DC Universe. So this Shadow of the Bat Joker was sold as a regular comic book, sold in grocery stores, sold in comic book stores. But what happened was DC and a few other comic publishers back in the 90s sold their rights to some of the books they had printed to make mass printed copies or mass printed bundles of books by a couple of publishers, sold in a proprietary bundle inside like major chain retailers. So you're thinking like a Zellers, a Kmart, a Sears, a Walmart,
Target, whatever.
Right, Target, all those places. And when they did that, they reprinted over the barcode with these DC Universe codes, or these DC Universe logos, exactly. That, yeah. So there are some, again, these are considered the modern day lowest print run comic books of any comic book. There's very few of them out there. You can't guess what's in the bundles. You don't know what books there are inside these. The bundles were only sold at specific retailers. A lot of the bundles are really old. They're early to mid 90s, but there are a few keys. There's first appearance of Harley Quinn that has a variation version with this DC Universe logo on it that's known to be out there.
First Doomsday.
Yeah, First Doomsday. Yep. There's a lot of variations from this, and a lot of other common books. It will bring a common book that's the normal version in comparable quality up by $5, $10 based on rarity, even if the book is a common, and nothing happens just because that DC Universe logo adds that exclusivity because it was printed at such lower print amounts. In fact, a lot of times printed a few months, if not years, after it was originally printed the first time and went to comic book stores. That's it. That's what we got. That is our new collector collecting guide. That's everything. This is what I've got for you. I hope this helped. Does it help you?
I think it helped.
It helped Anthony.
I knew nothing going into this.
You knew nothing?
Nothing.
Damn.
Blank slate, bro.
Damn, man. Well, there you go. If anything, at least my business partner knows what the hell's going on. Maybe he'll stop eating the comic books. I'm Cody from Big Beaver Comics.
And I'm Anthony from Big Beaver Comics.
If you haven't already, go over to Facebook, follow us over there. Make sure you like and follow all that stuff. We do live sales Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Go over to Instagram, follow along on Instagram. We usually preview all the hot books that we got in over on Instagram. We're kind of a cock tease over there. And YouTube, get down in this YouTube, subscribe, get in the comments, let us know what you think. Go bitch at us. You know how you guys like to fucking, everybody likes to tell everybody how they did shit wrong and we were wrong.
That's right.
This is your time. It's your time to shine, know it all. Get the fuck down there.